Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Whiskey Wanders. And today is a wander that I have been waiting to do all month because it is the second half of our Queens Creek Costco Grand opening. And this one is a biggie. It's where we go over all the heavy hitter whiskeys that we picked up basically at MSRP at this grand opening. I mean, there are things that people wait in line for. There are things that people really wait in line for here. Things like E.H. Taylor, barrel proofs, Yamazaki 18s, Eagle Rares, Blantons, and a unique special release from Jack Daniels, and a whole bunch more. So today we are covering the best of the bottles from Queens Creek Costco Grand Opening. We're talking about how much we ended up paying for them and whether or not they were actually worth picking up. Now, before we get to the video, if you like these videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of great stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because, one, it does really help the channel to grow, and we are super thankful for that. But also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays, like this one, or sometimes in between. Or now, let's get down to the video. All right, so while we are waiting for the Wander Vision to get warmed up, and while I'm waiting for me to get a little warmed up here, let's do our today's whiskey check. And I think I'm going to do something that I'm supposed to be saving, but and maybe compare in the future or whatever. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to kind of dig into your stash here. And so today I'm going to be enjoying some of this Michter's 10 Rye. Ooh, this one's always good. So look at that. All right, let's get it turned over here so we can get it arranged on both sides. See if we can get a pop. Hey, that was pretty good. So you get some juice here for myself. Ooh. Yeah. And to whiskey. Because let's face it, you can never really drink too much of it. You can only just drink it too fast. Cheers. Oh, that's good. Ooh. All right, so here we go. Look, even on an average Saturday outing at Costco, finding one of these at Costco, at pretty much the lowest price that you're ever going to find it, is always going to be a sign of a great day to come. But for one of those days where there is a grand opening and the energy is just jacked up to 1,000, we were so stoked to find this very first bourbon, which is this Eagle Rare 10 in the new bottle. Wow, that's nice, huh? Now, Eagle Rare is one of those rare bourbons, or rare things in general, that sit at the crossroads of a reasonable price with an above-average goodness. I would say that Eagle Rare is probably one of those bourbons that is positioned really at the top of its class and at a very, very fair price. Sort of like Costco hot dogs or early 2000s Subaru WRXs right now, or hey, even going to the air show is free and it's awesome. So that's why it's so sought after. It's because the value is just off the charts. Eagle Rare 10 is a line out of the Buffalo Trace stable, and it is really kind of the first step in the Eagle Rare ladder. Because of the fact there is the next level up, which is the Eagle Rare 17, which is a member of the B-Tax. But then there's also the Double Eagle, which, aside from looking like a hood ornament on a NASCAR and being exceptionally rare, is also exceptionally expensive. So this is a great place to start. It is made using the Buffalo Trace Mash Bill number 1, or the Low Rye Mash Bill, which it shares with the E.H. Taylor, the Standard Buffalo Trace Bourbon, and George T. Stagg. The guesstimation on the mash bill for it is at 75% corn, 10% rye, and 15% barley. But again, those things are just guesses. Now let's get to the price, because I know there are folks out there who are really going to be happy paying anything below $50 for an Eagle Rare. But when you can find it at Costco, man, is it a good deal. So here at Queens Creek Grand Opening, we can see that we bought this one for $26.99, which is, I don't even know how Costco stays in business at that price, right? Maybe it's all those hot dogs and tires they sell. Previously, I think we had actually found some of these at a Costco back home for $25.99. That was last year. Maybe not exactly a year ago, a little less. But more recently, we saw sightings of it at the Total Wine near us for $34.99. So by picking this one up at the Costco Queens Creek, we ended up saving $8 off the Total Wine price, or 29.64%, which is not too shabby. Now, one area that for Eagle Rare that does leave, we'll call it something to be desired, is going to be the ABV, because it is only going to be ABV'd at 45%, which you can see right there, or 90 proof. But all of that ultimately can get overlooked when it comes down to the price, especially if you can find it at MSRP or thereabout. Also, the palate on the Eagle Rare, quite good. There's a very reasonable amount of complexity, more than you would expect. Sweetness, vanilla, maple cookies, that's how I always describe it, and late harvest fuzzy fruits like apricots and peaches with a fair amount of clove and oak. Now, the only downside to the palate is going to be that in the mouth, it does feel a little thin, but what do you expect? Now, the other thing is that it's not only me who's overlooking some of these shortfalls, because when you look at the average scores on the Eagle Rare, with mine tossed in there into the pot, it ends up coming out at 89 points out of 100, which is very good. So yeah, a fair price, a great palate, and a bourbon that will never let you down. First one we got, Eagle Rare. So it's definitely a buy and something I would pick up all day and every day at that amount. So that is the Eagle Rare 10. So next up is a whiskey that is so highly sought after. I would say that the fervor for it is rivaling some of those other bourbons out there that are super hard to get. Now, don't get your panties in a bunch. I'm not talking about Pappy, but maybe things like a Stag Junior or an Elmer T. Lee, or perhaps even a Weller CYPB, which is this one, the Yamazaki 18. Ooh. Now, I don't know if you have noticed, though, as of late, Suntory has really put the screws down on all of us and just jacked up their prices so high. I mean, it is never more apparent than we'll see here on this Yamazaki 18, but we'll get to that in a sec. So the Yamazaki 18 is really the top of the standard line of whiskeys out of Suntory, at least the ones that us mere mortals are able to get our hands on. It's so highly sought after really for a couple reasons. One is that it is in pretty limited supply, because Suntory didn't think 18 years ago that, hey, people would be beating down their doors to try to get it. And in fact, 18 years ago, they weren't. Two is that it is one of the few age statement Japanese whiskeys that are still in production. Some of the other ones have paused it, like Hibiki. And three, because the immense quality and consistency that it always seems to have every single year. It's made with 100% malted barley, and is actually not just the Yamazaki 12, but with 6 more years added to it. But from the very, very beginning, they planned the course for the Yamazaki 18 very differently than for the 12. Kind of like in school when they send you to the auto shop instead of to algebra. And from the very beginning, Yamazaki 18 is made with different barrels and a different mixture and a different blend, and putting, in fact, in a different part of the warehouse than the Yamazaki 12. The Yamazaki 18 is made with a blend of 80% whiskey from white oak casks, and then the remaining 20% is from ex-sherry and Mizunara casks, which makes it really a huge departure from how they do it with the 12, at least the percentages. But let us get to the price, because this is just basically highway robbery. So the price that we see here at the Queens Creek Grand Opening is at $479.00, which always throws me off with the zeros. It's supposed to be $99. I'll pay $1 less. Also, the same price that we saw recently, if I can borrow a photo from Reddit, you can see that that is the same price that we're seeing here in Southern California right now. But when we look at the cost from last year, when we find it at Costco down here in Southern California, that's where all the eyebrows start getting raised. You can see that the price here is at $279.00. Like, wow. And why? For less than a year, it went up by a total of $200 or 41.55%. I mean, I think that is the biggest jump that we've seen thus far. I know the Yama 12 and the Yakusho 12 and their other lines have had similar bumps. I know they were $99 last year. We got a couple of them for $99 last year. Now we're seeing them at $147 or thereabouts here in Southern California. So I mean, that is just just not good, right? But that being said, by buying this at Costco, we are still saving, especially over the thousands of dollars that you would end up paying on the gray market or on the secondhand, or even what we saw in Europe. But altogether, the price raises just immensely crazy. That being said, the ABV on this one is going to be at a 43%, and you can see that right there. And look, you don't go looking into Japanese whiskeys, most Japanese whiskeys, if you're looking for a nice ethanol burn in the mouth. They just usually aren't ABV monsters. But where this one specifically makes up ground, and where you can really end up justifying the price, is going to be on the palate. You get rich, deep honey, malted graininess, dried palm dates with thick, creamy mouthfeel, filled with sherry, oak, roasted nuts, and just enough tannins to get a real kind of like texture out of there. So I mean, there's that, obviously. Also, when we look at the average scores for the Yamazaki 18, it is a true crowd pleaser. It gets 92 points out of 100. So, being able to even get my hands on this one and at a reasonable price, we'll call it reasonable, I mean, it just makes it clear whether or not it's worth waiting in line for. It definitely is. So yeah, that is the Yamazaki 18, and at $479, still going to be a buy all day, every day. So next up is a whiskey that I have been searching for, well, for quite some time, ever since I tried its little brother, which is this E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. Now, I love E.H. Taylor, the small batch. It is my go-to bourbon. It is great neat. It is great as a gift to associates, and it is just all around above average offering out of Buffalo Trace. But the one thing that I don't like about the E.H. Taylor small batch is even though the ABV is at 50% because it is bottle and bond, it just doesn't seem that that ABV is high enough to help it reach its full potential. So when I found this E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof at the Costco, it really made my day. Now, E.H. Taylor is sort of an under-the-radar whiskey from Buffalo Trace. Sure, lots of people can identify it from the silos because these things stick out like a sore thumb. But I don't think tons of people are actually ending up to drink it, especially when it is shelved next to its cousins like Blantons or Eagle Rare or Weller. But the E.H. Taylor to me is going to be my favorite out of the bunch. It is named after the former owner of the distillery, one Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor, not a real colonel, but a damn fine whiskey maker. And to be fair, he looks pretty great in a top hat. I mean, look at that. Who looks better in a top hat? Oh, you know what? Is the same picture as on the small batch? Let me see here. Well, let's see here. Actually, you know what? They are the same. Take a note, Buffalo Trace. Let's get some different profiles for these guys for the different bottles. Anyways, the E.H. Taylor line is made from Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 1, the low rye version, which is rumored to be 75% corn, 10% rye, and 15% barley. Oh, you know what? It's the same as the Eagle Rare. They're in the same one. This one specifically is only an annual release. It is definitely allocated. And from the research I could find on it, it is batch number 10 from 2021, based off the ABV, which you can see here is handwritten. Now, the price we see here at the Costco is at a super reasonable $56.89. It is always just crazy to me to see how much these prices are marked up over the MSRP and how much they end up going for sale. I mean, markups are almost enough to even make those Rolex gray market back alley sellers begin to plush. But for this one, I don't really have any comparables because you can't find it in Total Wine. And if you can find it in Total Wine, you can only get it if you are on the Grand Reserve list. Or unless you are part of the hoi polloi. And, Bevmo, yeah, no, it's not going to be a Bevmo. Now, speaking of ABV, if there is one defining trait about this E.H. Taylor, it is the ABV. That is because instead of the standard 50% ABV that you normally get on the small batch, this one is proofed at 63.65% or 127.3 proof. There's nothing to shake a stick at for sure. Also means that it's going to be a really good whiskey to bat cleanup at the end of the night, or possibly maybe to get the night started, get it going just right. And the tasting notes on it unanimously mention that on the palate, it is hot, 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 hot. Way more ABV heat than what you would be familiar with. Additionally, it has that normal kind of familiar E.H. Taylor flavor to it. So corn dust, strong vanilla, burnt custard, an immense amount of oak. And so really, it's just kind of like E.H. Taylor small batch, but super beefed up to the max. Like those dudes who come back to practice after summer break, and they're just super duper jacked. You're just like, what the heck have you been doing all summer? All right, so after all that doting on the E.H. Taylor, and I will admit, I am biased. Don't tell the other whiskeys, but you're my favorite. But the scores on this one, they're actually not that good. At 88 points out of 100 on average. But I don't know. I thought it would do better, I guess, but I can just chalk that one up to maybe the fact that it's kind of rare, so you don't see a lot of people actually trying it, or more likely the bias against it because it is not Blantons or Weller. So that is the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. I am super stoked to have this one. I'm even more excited to bust it open, try it out, and see if that difference in ABV really kind of picks up the pace from the small batch. So E.H. Barrel Proof. All right, so next up is a whiskey that I think I have been warming up to as of late. After the bad taste from adolescence has kind of worn off, and also maybe they're stepping up their game, but either way, it is this Jack Daniel's Twice Barrel. Now, the Jack Daniel's Classic No. 7 is known to be a starter whiskey. It's great with Coke, it's great with ginger ale, and hell, it might even be great on its own. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to go that far. But the new kind of higher end lines of Jack Daniels coming out of Brown-Forman with the Jack Daniels label, they really are starting to kind of get really, really interesting. For example, Exhibit A, this Jack Daniels Twice Barreled, is single malt made from 100% malted barley. It uses the Jack Daniels traditional charcoal mellowing process that they are known for, but it is twice barreled. So all you guys out there who like single barrels, well, this one's even better because it's double barreled, twice as much. But really, it is first barreled in new American charred oak barrels. Then it is re-barreled in Oloroso sherry cask from the Antonio Baez Lobato cooperage. How's that accent? And this one is a 2022 special release. It was put together by Jack Daniels master distiller Chris Fletcher, and there really is tons of provenance to go along with this one. They've just kind of put badges all over the place on it. So for example, this one was bottled on 10/14/2022 from Warehouse 3 or Barrel House 3-22 and from Sherry Cask 22-08718. Also, the other thing is they have a weird like registration thing that you can do using the bottle number. I think on this one it's at A. But maybe I should do that. But yeah, so it has a bottle number on it, and what you can do is you can go to the Jack Daniels website and you fill it out, and you get some sort of like certificate saying that you are officially a Jack Daniels bottle, owner. So I don't know. I think that's good, and I'm always a sucker for a certificate. One other strange thing about this one is that the fact that it is only 700 milliliters. And I think that maybe the reason why they did this is because they were not certain about how well this was going to sell in the United States. So by putting it at 700 milliliters, it means that if it doesn't sell well to Americans here, well, they could just put it in duty frees across the world and sell it to Americans in other countries. Kind of genius, really. The price that we see here at Costco is a very reasonable $55.99. But even if you were to go buy it at like a Total Wine, where you can find it for $71.99, or hey, even Bevmo has it. Good job, Bevmo. Well done. At $89.99, which to me really means that they made enough of it. They made a lot of this, and enough of it to really go around everywhere to everybody, which is kind of Jack Daniels' thing. But by getting this one at Costco here in Arizona, we do end up saving $16 off the Total Wine price, or a very healthy 28.58%. Now, the ABV on this Jack Daniels Double Barrel is actually uncharacteristically high. You can see it there. It's at 53.05%, or 106.1 proof. So, I mean, that's always nice. And on the tasting notes on it do mention things like chocolate malt, cocoa powder, sherry swirls, vanilla, cracked peppercorns, and the one thing that I noticed that's super odd, that is missing from the tasting notes, is the fact that no one talks about that classic banana flavor. So I thought that was really interesting. The scores on it are going to be above average for the Jack Daniels family at 85 points. So you know what, this one obviously it was a buy, mainly just because I'm really curious to see what Jack Daniels can do on the higher end. And I like to think of it as having done my undergraduate work with Lucky Number 7. I think it's time to step up to the master's degree program with some of these more limited, rare, and interesting Jack Daniels whiskey. So that is the Jack Daniels Twice Barreled. All right, so last up today, and some may say that I am saving the best for last, but if you remember all my drooling I just did over the E.H. Taylor, I would say that it's not the case. But either way, this next one we got at Costco at the grand opening is a bottle that is always sought after, is always valuable, and always appreciated, especially because of the fishnets, if you know what I'm talking about. It is this Blanton's Single Barrel. Now, Blantons is a great mid-level bourbon. It's a crowd pleaser. Some may dislike this, or some may dislike that about it, but nobody is ever going to turn it down. And that says a lot about what a bourbon can be. Also, it is coupled with all the kind of pomp and circumstance and like regalia that goes along with it, with a bourbon that could technically be fit for a king. Move over, McAllen's, right? So it is good. And when you find it MSRP, I mean, it's just a reflexive buy, honestly. This one was bottled specifically on, let's get these off, at 11/23/2022 from barrel 3962, which you can see there. Bottle number 47. And it is the letter O. The letter of the day today is O. It is from Buffalo Trace's High Rye Mash Bill number 2, which with it shares the DNA of Elmer T. Lee, Hancock, and Rock Hill Farms. And it is estimated to have a rye content of between 12 and 15%. The price that we see here is at a very, very reasonable $47.99. Again, this is a price that you would only find basically at a government liquor store, which I'm told, because we don't do that here in California, or find it at a big box store like a Costco or a Sam's Club. But to get those ones, you got to be real quick. Now, recently we saw one of these Blantons at our local Total Wine. I think we saw it for $79.99. And the last one we got from Costco here in California was at $46.99. But that was a little while ago, less than a year, but a little while ago. So we'll have to see what those new prices look like after Buffalo Trace gets hit with those inflation numbers. That being said, if we do end up comparing this price to the Total Wine price, we end up saving $32 by getting it at Costco, or saving a whopping 66.68%. I mean, come on. Shame on you, Total Wine. Just shafting the Blantonistas. That aside, the ABV on the Blanton single barrel is at a 46.5 ABV, or 93 proof, if my math is right. It may not be. So be it. And the tasting notes mention things like rye, brown sugar, spice, like cooking spice, baking spice, traditional bourbon flavor, basically the baseline for what you would expect a bourbon to actually supposed to taste like, as well as caramel, vanilla, char, and a bit watery mouthfeel. Kind of what you would expect from the entry level. For the scores on it, it got a very solid 88 points out of 100, which is exactly what I would expect it to get. And when push comes to shove, and in this case, at the grand opening, sometimes push does end up coming into shove, it is going to be a buy. When you can get it at a 66.68% saving, I mean, man, it just never really hurts to pick up an extra one just to have as a backup, just in case you need it. So that is the Blanton's single barrel. All right, so that's it for today's epic whiskey wander. Basically, I don't know, I guess you could call it a mini haul from the Costco grand opening in Queens Creek. And the nice thing about Costco is that they always do end up bringing out the whiskey, because they know what brings in all the people. Either way, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, if you like all the videos, you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the great stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of great stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel to grow. Again, thank you for that. But also, it's really good for your whiskey mojo. It pleases the whiskey gods, and you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays and sometimes in between. All right, with that, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. In this case, it might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.